Watch and burn.
Hey everybody! So tonight I would like to discuss the 1991 horror film Popcorn. This is one of those movies that I grew up seeing the box with, like, what is it, buy a box, go home in a bag was the tagline. It's got the picture of the chick's face with the mask kind of coming off with the skeleton behind it. It used to freak me out when I was a kid. This cover and Mortuary used to scare the hell out of me when I was a kid as well. Mortuary, unfortunately, turned out the best part of Mortuary was the cover. Before they bury you, make sure you're really dead or whatever it is. You got the hand coming out of the tombstone. Yeah. Now this movie, on the other hand, this one completely pulled off. I finally saw this a few years after it had come out. I thank God for those dudes that worked up at Wonder Video. They said this movie was amazing and that we had to see it, blah, blah, blah. So we rented it. And this movie has a lot more going for it. So this tells the story of Maggie and Suzanne. Now, Maggie is a student at her local university, which technically is nowhere near being local because, if I'm not mistaken, they filmed this entire movie in Jamaica. But nonetheless, she's somewhere in the States and she's going to university. She is a film student and she's having these really heavy dreams about some dude saying possessor, possessor, and saying the name, if memory serves, Sarah over and over again. And she's having these dreams, and so she's using these interpretive dreams, and she's finding a way to work them into the movie that she's working on because, you know, she feels that it's scary and it's compelling and it's going to make a great student film. And so through this, we're introduced to a bunch of her classmates in one of her film classes, and they're a really fun group of characters. The only one you really need to know about is a dude by the name of Toby. He's like the nicest guy in the class. He's got the sort of the best outlook, the best attitude, the most positive vibe, and he's the one that introduces them to the dude that hooks them up with all this gear in order to throw a really fun film festival, because the film department at whatever university this is brand new, and so every new department has to make a splash by sort of doing something massive to announce that they're here. So they're going to have this old school piece of shit horror movie film festival that shows three really old bad horror movies. However, the thing that makes these horror movies super fun, and my God, I've wanted to go to this thing ever since I saw this movie for the first time back when I was a kid. And they have a gimmick. Each of the old movies, like one will, when the giant mosquito that's sucking people dry, and the thing is huge, they have a massive mosquito fly through the theater and scare everybody there watching the movies. And then the one with the dude who's he's electrified and he can shock people, they have the chairs in the theater, they're shockable. So all of a sudden you'll get hit and you'll jump. And then the other one was called the stench or something, so they had smell-o-vision or whatever it was, and they had like really horrible smells pumped into the theater in order to emulate the smells that the character in the movie were having to deal with. So that was super. That seems like the most fun place in the world, and I have wanted to go there and buy a t-shirt and hang out at this little mini... Oh man, that sounds like thunder. Fuck, that sounds like thunder. Anyways, yeah, so I've wanted to go there since I was a kid, and well, I guess in a sense I get to go there every time I watch the movie. It's a really good way of looking at it. But yeah, so anyways, Maggie's having these dreams, and so as they're going through all the old props that the dude brings in order to set up the film festival, they find this old reel, and it's called Possessor. And so they decide to play it because they're all film nuts, and they see a candy store film, they're like, dude, we gotta see what's on this. And the professor in the class knows who it is. It's a dude by the name of Lanyard Gates. And he had this little film cult back in the 60s, because back then cults were their thing because of the Manson family and everything. And the professor said that he even bought into Gates' shtick until he saw his films. And the movie kind of sucked. And so the thing is, the film is the dream that Maggie is having. So to sum it up quickly, what the story here is that Maggie isn't Maggie, her name is Sarah, and Lanyard Gates is her father. And way back when, he tried to put on this massive ending performance where he was going to trap everybody in the theater, kill himself, the audience, as well as his family, his daughter, Sarah, who's now Maggie, and I believe he had a son, him as well, and like I said, everybody in the theater for Possessor. And it didn't work because Sarah's aunt, Suzanne, played by Dee Wallace, she gets her out. And that's one of the most interesting things about this movie is Dee Wallace gets a phone call and she's told to go to the theater where they're putting on the little film festival. And when she gets there, all the letters start popping off the front, and then the word possessor is just sort of supernaturally imposed. And this isn't really that kind of movie. So you would think that would be dumb. but it fit. And it actually sort of helped the myth of this movie build even stronger. And it made this movie even more compelling. Whereas that should have had the opposite effect. But it didn't. That was just cool. And so what we find out is Toby, the super nice kid, is actually a fucking lunatic who was pretty much burned to death by his dad, who was Lanyard Gates, because he's Maggie's brother. And his face ain't his face. This is some of the best makeup that you will ever see in a horror movie. Or a movie, period. This is like RoboCop levels of makeup wizardry, okay? What they did to Toby, how they were able to make him look that way. Like, he has to put his ears on because his ears aren't real, his nose isn't real, the skin isn't real, his lips aren't real, his eyes aren't real. He's burnt and completely fucked up and got wires all over his face to hold his skull together because of the damage inflicted on him as the result of being in the fire back when he was a kid. So he's gone completely mad, and he's going to finish his father's work. He's going to kill Sarah, his sister, who's now Maggie. God, this movie's fun. This is like one of the best examples of late 80s, early 90s American horror ever made. And I'm going to stop talking because this is almost 7 minutes long, and I heard thunder. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for almost 7 minutes while I discuss one of the best horror movies from the late 80s through early 90s that I've ever seen, and that is 1991's Popcorn. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. But please, most importantly, don't forget that the world is actually a better place because you are in it. I know I should probably say this stuff at the start because no one ever makes it to the end. But nonetheless, I've been saying it at the end the whole time. It's true. You matter. The world is a better place because you're in it. Like always, I'm going to go. Thank you so much. Have a good night.